And we are officially live. Hey everybody, my name is Wes, and today we're joined with...
Hi, I'm Byron.
Byron, now he's the guy that's over all this. And I was able to get you in here today to talk about all this, which makes me pumped.
I am thrilled to be here. Very excited to talk with you and to work on some of these church websites and connect sites that we've been talking about.
In real time, which is kind of insane.
In real time, right? We're going to show you.
Now, if you have been living under a rock, well, get out from under the rock. Last week, we announced our core update to Church Connect, in which we launched so many things, which we're going to talk about all that just to kind of recap. But before we dive into all the things, there's a couple things we need to let you all know about. Number one, if you are the type of person like myself that doesn't like to learn by reading stuff, you'd rather watch a video, well, we've got hundreds of videos there for you to watch on our YouTube channel. So go ahead, check them out. And also, we have an amazing Facebook group. In fact, I was just on there a little earlier and just seeing all the conversations happening. That's such a great place to hang out if you're the type of person that just wants to bounce ideas from other church leaders about, how to do this with Church Connect, or, what are you doing in your accounting for this? Whatever it may be, that's a great group to go to. And then last but not least, this is kind of the laundry list of all the things we have to get done before we dive into this. If you ever need help in ChurchTrac, just click that help button on the top right corner of your screen, and there you can get access to our online user guide, or go straight to asking our team a question, or even scheduling a phone call. So, all right, well, all that's out of the way, Byron. Now we can dive into this, and we're leaving the chat wide open for this one.
Absolutely. Want to hear from everyone.
Yeah, so this is very different from last week where we had a Q&A time, which we're still going to have a Q&A time, but we're going to have the chat wide open, and our team, they'll be monitoring it and everything and answering questions as we go along. And we're going to be showing off all this stuff in real time, how to build church websites. We're doing 3 of them today. Right,
and maybe people don't know, they haven't heard, but last week we released our biggest Church Connect update ever. Is it safe to say that, Wes?
It is.
Right, so it's a complete rebuilding of what Church Connect is, and we can make some really good looking sites with Church Connect now.
Yeah, and just to kind of highlight some of the features that we came out with, Byron, what would you say the biggest ones were?
Well, just the ability to create a site that you're proud of. Like, let's put that at the top of the list.
Yeah.
If you look here, you can see one of our example churches that you guys set up. I mean, you can do some amazing looking stuff with Church Connect now. And this is top tier. I mean, as you're scrolling through, you have a map, you have different sections you can add now. It's not just your cards anymore. Yeah. It's so much more.
And what's wild is this little website we're showing off, the random action verb church, for if you know, you know. But I made that in I think I spent maybe an hour making this, and that included like a bunch of time in Canva, actually just creating custom images for this. But the actual building of this site that you just showed, I think I spent like 5 minutes. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So we basically had a full rewrite of everything, but we also came out with additional cards, different functionalities. I encourage everyone to probably go to the blog post where we've got it more in detail. But we've already come out with stuff since just last week.
That's right. And I'd like to show you a few of those things if I can.
Yeah, let's do it.
First of all, and I'm logged into an account here that we're going to show off in just a second, but we have now something that you're going to be really excited about. In several different places, you're going to have the ability to select an Igniter media image. We've partnered with Igniter Media to be able to offer thousands of images from their library, and they're just behind a click of a button. So as you come in here, you can search for really anything. I'm just going to say city. I want a picture with a city background, and I can immediately look and see all of this content, thousands upon thousands of images that we can use not only on images, but on hero sections as our background image, and also, big news, for cards.
Yes. And I mean, just simply typing, let's look up another one in real time. Pray. And let's see what we see. Love it. So we're getting all these images, and this is so much better than a lot of other resources I've used in the past that are not really geared for churches. And so it's kind of like you search for something, and out of the 1,000 things you see, you may be able to use one of them. even though we have thousands of things to choose from here, like all of them are amazing. Like this is kind of awesome.
They are, and so you're going to be able to build an even better looking site using the resources available from Igniter.
And this resource, just so everyone is fully aware, this is a resource that ChurchTrac has purchased for all ChurchTrac users to be able to utilize, so that there's no additional amount that a church has to pay to use this.
This is included in your subscription.
That's awesome. And this is something that you would have to pay over $400 a year to have access to, I think, as a church. And so now all churches have this from ChurchTrac.
Now, we don't have the entire Igniter library available to you, but stay tuned. We're going to have an announcement shortly where you can purchase at a very discounted rate your own Igniter subscription to have access to their entire content and a whole lot more from them.
Yeah, and they even provide Canva templates. They have Canva templates, they have videos. So we're going to hook you all up with some pretty awesome resources at an insane price on that too.
Another thing that we've released in the last week is an option to use a custom footer, and we're going to look at that a little bit more in just a bit. But that's a new feature that's been released since the announcement last week.
Nice. And this is just in the past week we added this feature.
There's more stuff coming too.
Yes. So we have to just kind of bring everyone up to speed because we kind of mentioned it last week, but what are the big things that we're going to be launching in the coming weeks?
The biggest thing that people are interested in is the ability to use your own domain name as your Church Connect site. So mychurch.com or mychurch.org, it can now be your Church Connect page. Yeah. And we're going to make an announcement on that in the next couple of weeks. And it's amazing. We already have a few sites set up, and we're testing it right now before we send it off to everybody. And it's gorgeous. It's going to be great to be able to use your own domain name on your Church Connect page.
Yeah, and this is something, a lot of churches have been doing the domain forwarding, where they forward it, but it still ultimately landed on that subdomain of ChurchTrac. And I think that's just going to be so wild. And this, I think, puts the nail in the coffin for so many churches that had their websites. They were, hosting through something like Squarespace or Wix and having to pay that amount of money every single month to keep that. Now they're able to ditch that and move everything over to ChurchTrac and make their life a lot easier and also save a ton of money.
Save a lot of money. We've heard from churches that are spending $50 a month, or they paid $500 to set up a site that doesn't work. And so now this is going to solve a lot of those problems for a lot of churches. In fact, speaking of that, we should talk about this.
Yes. Let's talk about it. You have this huge stack of papers here. You show off these papers.
I need to show you this. So we asked to hear from churches last week, and we heard from churches, and hundreds of you have written in and said, we are desperate for help.
Yeah.
We need someone to help us with our site. We need to know how to get started. We need to know what to do first. We just don't have the resources. We don't have the know-how to be able to do it. And I think Church Connect and ChurchTrac has found a solution to being able to make that happen for so many churches.
Yes. And so to kind of put it in perspective, I mean, this is a stack of how many you figure churches is maybe 100 or something?
Yeah.
That all applied wanting us to build them a website.
Right.
And so initially we said we were going to be building the websites of 3 churches. And then we were like, well, maybe we'll build a few more to help churches out. But now what are we doing?
So when we read through these responses, it really just broke our heart. In fact, I will admit, tears came to my eyes just seeing the struggles that you are going through, the challenges that you're facing, because you're doing administration and you're doing your accounting for your church, and you're the church janitor, and you're also the pastor, and you're now having to build a website, and we want to make it as easy as possible for you. And so we're going to do something really crazy. We're going to try and build as many of these for you as we can. Yeah. It might not be a full site. It might just be what we're going to call later on a quick site, where we're going to get you started. We can help you get that ball rolling, and then you can run with it a little bit further. But for as many of you as we possibly can, we're going to reach out and try to get you started going in the right direction.
It's so awesome.
It is.
And so one of the sites we're going to be building in a second is through a church. I've just let me get the name here. This was Lighthouse Church. I was talking to Kathy, and she was telling me, you know, they're spending a lot of money to have their existing church website and everything, and they struggle just keeping it updated. They struggle just making it look good because it's built on a platform that they really just can't navigate well because it was built by someone who knew how to code, you know? Yeah. And she was just like, y'all are instantly going to be saving us hundreds of dollars a year, and we're actually going to be able to have a website that can stay updated, that people can actually know what's going on at our church, and it doesn't have stuff on there that is like irrelevant or broken links. I was on their website and found a couple broken links, and this is going to eliminate all those frustrations and also just waste of money.
We've heard from some people who have church websites that they've hired someone else to do, and they don't even have access to them. They have to reach out to the company or to the person to make changes to their site.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes weeks just to change one thing on their site, or it costs money to change something on their site. And Church Connect is designed to alleviate all of those frustrations and make it easy for you.
Yeah, and so that we're going to be doing all that. And then as far as the service that we're going to be offering, additional things for building sites and using your domain and all that, stay tuned on all that. We're kind of just putting the finishing touches, wrap a bow on it, and we'll be launching that and having more announcements regarding all that. But enough of all that. We need to build some church websites.
Build some sites. Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do, Byron. Obviously, we're not going to be able to build a site in its entirety to where we're like, boom, this is a 100% completed website. We can't do that in this small time frame. But we're going to do our very best in a very short amount of time for each one of these churches to basically take them from something that's kind of like, to something that's like, oh, wow, I would be okay with people seeing this and it looks great.
Right. And we're going to do 3 of those right now in the next few minutes, and we're going to get started on these. We'll go back and do some more on them in the coming weeks. Yeah. But for right now, we want to at least show you step by step so you can see this is how I get started. Whether I'm, just getting started or I've done a few things, but I need to know what to do next.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will help.
All right, so the first one we're going to start is Park Lane Baptist Church, Byron, which happens to be a church not too far from our main headquarters. And so here we've got logged in.
Yeah,
Walk us through it.
And so what I see here is this is a page. Now I'm obviously inside of their account, and this is their page setup tab. If I were to look at their actual Connect page as it stands right now, it looks like this. And so they're off to a start. It's not horrible, but there are some things that we can do to make it better. The first thing, Wes, is let's talk about what makes a good nav bar. Now that nav bar is the bar that's always across the top of your site.
Yep.
It gives you, it shows your church name, it shows the sign in button, so that people can log in to access your other Connect resources like online giving. But you can also now add some links to this bar as well. So in this case, we see that they've started the process of customizing this. They've made some changes to make the nav bar a little bit larger, but they haven't done anything else.
And just sorry to interrupt, but could you just kind of show real quick where like that nav bar, there we go. That way, just for some people who are like, nav bar, what's he talking about?
It's this darker blue section at the very top here. So when I go back into their account, I can go to page setup and hover over the nav bar, and I get the option here to edit the nav bar. So that's what we want to do first. And this opens up a dialog where I can start specifying some things. Now what I see here is, first of all, the lack of a logo. They have not uploaded a logo. We went ahead and did a logo for this site. We're not going to do it in real time because it takes a few minutes to create a logo, but you can easily create something better than the default text that we put on your screen, just your church name. You can do that in Canva pretty easily. Yeah. You can set up something that looks, even if it's just text, that looks better than this, and then upload it here as a transparent PNG file.
Yeah, and most churches, are already going to have a logo, but a lot of you may not have a logo, or maybe you've lost the old one and you're actually kind of wanting to rebrand. Highly recommend using something like Canva to get you started, to help you create a logo, so that way you have something, and something is better than nothing.
Right, so here I'm going to drop in the file that we've already created, and it immediately updates my preview here, and if I close this, it's going to update. That's so much better, and there's no fancy graphics here. There's only thing it is a PNG file with some stylized text in it.
Yeah.
And it already looks so much better than what was there. Next, the other important thing that you want to do is set up some links. When you ask yourself, what are the most important things that you want your site visitors to see, you're going to put those links on your nav bar. We've allowed up to 4 links. Now, one of the things that we heard multiple times this week was, hey, can we have more than 4 links here? Why is that a bad idea?
So it just comes down to overwhelming people. You only want to have so many calls to action.
Right.
Because if you have people that are like a new guest to your church and you have like 10 different links they can choose from that are immediate and the first thing they see, they're not going to know like what is it that's most important they should be doing. And so by limiting it to those 4 things, you're able to really just hone in on the needs of the guests as well as the needs of your members at your church.
Right. And I'm going to add just something that I think every church should have is just a connect with us. Now you can put it on your nav bar, we can put it in our hero section, which we'll see in a little bit. But I just come in here and I'm going to select whatever my connect card is. And you can see there's a lot of cards on this particular account. We'll talk about that in a second. But I choose that card and I add, and now this link will show up on my nav bar. If I go back to our page and reload, now I already have something that looks a little bit better than it was before. The next thing we want to focus on is this hero section here. Now, a lot of churches I've seen have actually started to create a hero, but then they forget to publish it.
Yes.
And so it doesn't show up on their site.
I did that earlier when I was messing around creating another church.
So as you create these different sections, you want to make sure that you toggle the published to on. Otherwise, it won't show up on your account. This allows you to set up a section the way you want it before you make it live for everybody to see.
And you don't have to zoom in every time.
I'll help them out if I can. And then height on this section, there's a few different choices here. Usually medium is a good height. The other thing though that they could do to customize this section is put a background image here instead of just a solid color. Solid color doesn't look bad. Sometimes a background image makes it a little bit better.
It does. And obviously on a cell phone, they're not going to see too much of it, but still, it makes it pop.
So for the hero, just click background on that hovering toolbar, and you can come in here and select your Ignite or media image, or you can upload your own image if you already have one. Now, for a hero section, you want to make sure that you're doing a landscape type or wide image and not a tall image. Tall images don't work as well. Also, one of the things that we've seen is people wanting to use images that have text on them for their hero. And because that's not going to look as good on smaller screens, we recommend that you don't do that. Instead, you should use a generic background image, something that reflects your church, and then put your text on top of that. So here, I'm going to go back to searching one of these. Now we can obviously swap this out at any point, but I like this image. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to add a little bit of an overlay so that it doesn't interfere too much with our text. And then when I close it, now I have something that just makes it pop a little bit more than just a solid color.
It's crazy how just that little thing, I mean, we have only spent 60 seconds on that, and now it just looks tremendously better.
Right, absolutely. We don't want to spend too much time because we've got 2 more to do, so let me scroll down to our card section. Now, what I see when I see their card section is there's just a lot of different colors, a lot of different things happening, and a little bit of confusion, I would think. So I would say decide what cards you want to show and limit those to 6, maybe.
6 to 8 is kind of what I recommend to people. And one of the cool things about the cards is you can choose to have a card displayed whenever someone is either logged in or not logged in. And so there are certain cards that people are only going to see when they're logged in, vice versa. Right. So you may have 10 cards, but at any given time, maybe only 8 of those are going to be visible.
Right. Let's also talk just for a second about colors, because one of the things I see is just an inconsistent use of colors on this page. So we have some blues, we have some grays, we have some browns, and then we have a whole slew of other colors.
Yes.
And so it always is better to have a consistent use of colors. And what I want to do is I just want to pick a few colors that they're using right here. And what's really great here is you can build your whole site off of these colors that are already established. one of the things I have, a tool that I use is just a color picker. I can go in and say, I want to grab that color. So I'm going to grab the hex value for that color. And then we have a site that we use sometimes that Wes recommends that's called coolers.co.
Yeah.
And it's just a color site where you can take and plug in those colors and get some other colors that correspond to it. It's one of hundreds of sites on the internet that do similar things. So just Google for, color
palette generator.
Yeah,
you'll find
like
something.
That. And so I've got these 3 colors here that I want to use. Don't use too many colors. Like 5 colors is probably a little too much. It's gonna breed confusion on your site. But here I can take and grab a few of these colors, and I want to just make some quick changes before we move to our next one. I'm going to change our nav bar color, which I'm moving fast, so y'all have to watch fast.
Just know if you're watching this in the future, you can slow down at any time or pause.
And so I have these other 2 colors here. Notice that their main background color is set to white, and I want to change that too. So I'm going to go back to my color palette, and I'm going to use this color as my background color. And this is a setting that we're going to make under cards and connect settings. This is my main or card section background color. I can paste that in right here. And then I'm going to do one more thing here. This other color that we grabbed is this medium, warm, darker color. And I'm going to come in back to my page setup, and I'm going to edit my footer and make that my footer color. Now you can do a lot with this, but just having a consistent color theme, I would obviously come in here and do something with the cards and make them use a consistent color theme too, but there's a lot you can do in just a short amount of time to make it look a lot better.
Well, and then like just the quick thing I even noticed, Byron, so as you scroll through their cards, they had one where they were showing off their service times. That's a card that's kind of unnecessary now, because now we can utilize a template that shows the service times that looks much better and is more visible for people to see.
Right, we're actually gonna look at that on the next one, which we can do right now.
Let's do it. All right. So that was just quickly showing off the first side of just some things we do. Now we're gonna log into another church. And this particular church we're gonna show off, this is Parrish First Baptist Church. And this church, they've already kind of got started with their Connect and put in some cards and different things. And we're just gonna show off a few things that we can do in real time to really make this pop and look awesome.
Okay, so here we have what their site looks like currently. If you were to open it up on the web, and we see a bunch of cards and we see a bunch of purple. Now, we did reach out to them and they said purple is one of the colors we use. So I would say don't just pick your favorite color. Sometimes purple is your theme color or your branding color. If so, definitely use it. But as you're setting it up, make some design choices that you think are going to look good for everyone.
Yeah, and I see Callie. So Callie's in the chat right now. This is their site. The hex codes. That's having those hex values is so key, because if you've already got those, and then when you're having us do it or someone else do anything on your site, you have the consistent colors, and you don't have like weird variants of different shades of purple. You have the exact shade of purple that your church uses for everything.
So you notice that this didn't show up when we were previewing their page. So maybe Callie forgot to click the publish toggle here. Again, just make sure that when you're done with a section, mark it published so that it shows up on your site. But let me just point out here too, we have a background image. We have some text on the screen that says who we are. What would you do differently here, Wes? What do you think?
So I would say over 5 years ago, give or take, it was a pretty common trend to put the picture of your church building, just because for a lot of people it made it easier to see, like, okay, this is the church, this is where I go. But we're seeing now the trend is more so showing what's going on at your church. Now the trend that we actually are seeing die is the trend of videos, because I don't have time to explain it, but basically there's a lot of reasons why you don't use videos in your church website anymore, and a lot of churches have gone away from that now. But in this situation, I would say this is a perfect opportunity to feature maybe people walking into the church, just a quick picture of just people welcoming people as they walk into the church, so you can see just that kind of vibe of the church.
Right. As a general rule, you can say that buildings kind of convey a colder, less personal vibe, whereas you want to see some people and some smiling faces. Don't show the ladies sitting around the table and they all look grumpy. Don't show that picture either. Show warm, welcoming people, and that's going to really take your site to the next level.
Yeah.
So right here, what I would do is I would swap out this background, and you can use a different image of your own, or you can, let's just say welcome.
Yeah,
let's see what comes
now,
up.
obviously, Callie's probably going to snap a picture this Sunday of people walking in her church and then change that.
Right. And so you see something like this. Yes, it has a building in it, but it's still showing people in the foreground. And remember, you want to pick something that's landscape. A tip here, if you want a landscape image, then you can turn these off. And I actually just selected an image instead, but that's fine. You can search just landscape images. And now it just gives it a warmer feel.
Yeah, that looks so much better instantly. Now, obviously, this isn't Callie's church, but there you go.
Right.
It gives
just
the idea.
as an example of what you can do. Now, if you come back in here, next up we see times and locations. She's created a section and put some stuff in here. That's just a lot of stuff to read. We actually have a template that you can use for this that'll turn out so much better. So I'm going to say add a body section here, and I'm going to come up to add content and use a template. And I'm going to scroll down to the template that is service times. I'm going to select that and inject it in. It's going to replace the existing content. And now I can come in here and set this up. So they have Sunday mornings, they have Sunday school, they have worship on Wednesdays, and prayer and Bible studies. So it would just be a matter of coming in now and editing these two sections to be able to reflect their service times. And it looks so much better than just the times and locations that's up here.
Yeah.
The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is you can kind of go into power mode when you're editing one of these sections. You can click on this toolbar, the keyboard. It's kind of small, so I'll zoom in for this one, Wes. This
for
keyboard,
people wearing glasses like you.
Yes. And this opens up an editor, which you're probably familiar with if you've been using Connect. It had an editor before that was similar to this, where you could go in and actually edit text. Or if you're a superpower user, then you could go into code view and actually see the HTML code behind that and make some changes to that. So unless you know what you're doing, this will void your warranty. We don't recommend that you do that. But you can always go in if you need to and edit content using this editor instead. So I would update the service times. I'd say again here, limit the cards. You can do
see how many cards that they've got going on there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 cards. It kind of is overwhelming, especially if you're visiting this site for the first time. Like what is the most important thing that's supposed to draw my attention to?
Yeah, and I think this is a perfect prime example of just hiding some of those cards and making them only visible to members.
Right.
But in this case, there are pretty much everything I see there, they do want probably everyone to see, but I think there's a better way we can convey some of that information with the templates that we have built in.
Right, absolutely. And we kind of went past the nav bar. We actually have a logo that we created for here too, or that they provided for us. And so this is going to look so much better. Now notice how small it is. I recommend that if you're going to use your own logo, that you jump up to medium or large for your navbar height. This just makes it a little bit bigger, makes your logo pop a little bit more, and so it looks so much better. Don't forget to add your links, your most important up to 4 things that are most important that you want people to see. You can add them to the top, and that makes for a better looking site. Now you can change your background color, you can update your cards, you can use, in fact, let me do that real quick. If I go to edit cards, I'm going to add a new card just as a sample here real quick before we get to the next one. And I'm going to say before cards. You can name your card, which will be important if you're editing the page. So I'm going to say my first card, and I'm going to add this card. It's going to show up, and now I can pick an igniter image for this card too, just by going here and doing a search. And maybe I want to say welcome. And I really like this one. It's already got some text on it, which is great for these cards.
That's just kind of crazy how it's already done.
And so in just a few seconds, you can create a card It's not a replacement for if you want all of your cards to look very similar. You can do that in Canva, create your own card images. Sometimes people like you like all of your cards to be exactly the same size, but having cards of different sizes is okay as a design choice too.
Yep.
Just depends on what you're looking for and what you want to accomplish.
Well, and I think this bridges the gap between, for those of you out there that are like, Wes, I don't know how to use Canva, I don't know how to use anything, I just want a site that doesn't look terrible. Being able to take these Igniter images and quickly find things like that welcome card, throw that in there, it doesn't look like you just threw it in there. It actually looks like it was intentional. And then if you do want to take things next level, if you are the kind of person like myself who is like, I like to create in Canva, well then you can create those things in Canva too and then drop those right in. And then like personally, I like all squares now. Not that I'm a square guy, but when I'm making Church Connects, I like the square look. So.
Well, let me show you something, Wes.
Okay, show me.
So I'm gonna come back into this card and I'm gonna edit the card. There's a new button that you didn't have before called Edit Image. This is going to allow you to take an existing image and apply a square crop ratio to it. I'm going to come in here and drag it to where I can just see the square part. I'm going to apply changes and then say OK.
Look at that.
And now my image is square. And I could do that for all of my cards if I wanted, or I could make them a 16:9 or a 4:3 aspect ratio if I wanted all of my stuff to be exactly the same.
I think a lot of church leaders are going to leverage that feature right there.
Let me refresh that. It glitched out on us a little bit, but now I have a square card.
That's
Isn't that
awesome.
Neat?
Yeah, that's
all right,
pretty
we've
great.
got one more to do, Wes. What do you think?
Yeah, let's since we showed off some of those things on Parrish, let's go to Lighthouse Church Nazarene. And I actually just got off the phone with them a little earlier. We were just chatting, had a good convo. This is wild, Byron. We're literally, obviously we're not building the entire site, in this short period of time for every church, but we're showing churches very quickly how fast it is to get up and running. And if we were to actually sit down here and build a site from scratch, I know it well, so obviously I could build it quick, but for your average church leader, in an hour's time, they can have an entire website up and running. They're ready to rock.
Right, absolutely. So when I look at this, I see they've already gone in and made some changes, but a lot of their content is just the old default stuff that was created when they created their ChurchTrac account. Some of these are sample cards. They've actually added our new verse card, but they've added it twice, so it's the same thing on here 2 times.
Maybe they just want to really bathe people in the Word of God.
That's a good thing. In this case, though, we're gonna actually end up removing one, and then they've done a little bit with their nav bar, and they've added this icon. Now, what I don't like about their icon is it's kind of square. It doesn't say anything about who they are. So if I was visiting this site, I don't know what church I'm looking at.
That's true.
And so I want to swap out this icon on their nav bar with something different that shows me a little bit more about who they are. And then I want to do some design things real quick. And so I'm just going to walk you through my thinking as we go into this. So here I am on their ChurchTrac account, and I want to just start with the nav bar. It's at the top. So I'm going to come in here and swap out the logo. First, remove the old logo, and I'm going to upload one that we have created here for Lighthouse and drop it in.
Boom.
So now it still has this Lighthouse theme going, but I can see clearly now this is Lighthouse Church of the Nazarene. I didn't know that.
Now
before.
You do.
Now you do. And so that gets us started in that direction. We've got some colors we're going to come back and deal with in just a bit, but when I close and refresh, now it looks so much better.
Yeah, that looks light years better.
The next thing I want to deal with is they've selected this kind of bright blue in-your-face color. And one of the things we recommend for your background setting, the general color that you pick, that it be a lighter color.
Yeah.
And it works so much better on some of your Connect pages, and it's easier on the eyes too. So I'm going to go into cards and change that color in my Connect settings. Now, I can, with this little tool here, drag around and find a different color if I wanted that's lighter but still has a blue touch to it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do a blue without making it look purple. But
yeah,
it's got a little bit of a purple tinge to it. So I would actually use one of our tools like the site that we saw earlier to determine exactly what colors to use if I had a little bit more time to do that. But already, if you just come back to this page and refresh it, it just feels a little bit cleaner now.
Yeah, it does.
And so let's be consistent. what color should I pick for my nav bar? What color should I pick for my footer? You can use the same color there. You can use variations of those colors. Generally, I like the nav bar to be a darker color background, the footer to be a darker color background.
I do too.
And the middle section to be a little bit lighter. Just feel like that sets it apart, makes it look good. Now, back into this, if I were working on these cards, which I would eliminate the sample cards that we created.
Most definitely.
When you set up your account, let's remove one of these extra verse cards that we don't need. These are all sample cards that we created. You might be using them. The connection card that defaults when you create your ChurchTrac account is actually not a bad card. You're supposed to go in and customize it for your own needs.
Yeah.
But it's already set up with some questions that you might even want to use as part of your Connect process. As you're asking people to fill out their online Connect card, they can do it right there. And you can also link them to this card and the form questions directly. I think we showed this last week where you can view your URL and QR code.
And this
so it
is
makes
for
it
any
really
card.
easy. You put it up on your screen if you've got a screen in your church with, connect with us, and you put this QR code up there, and they can immediately jump directly to that page on your site.
And you know what's funny, Byron, is that feature I forgot about on live air until I think it was Matt pointed it out to me. And then everybody else in the Facebook group and everything throughout the week was just raving about that. And I was like, I didn't realize that's such a big deal, but it actually makes life so much easier when you have that QR code that you can quickly generate to share to that form or that certain page in your site already built into ChurchTrac.
Right. I'm going to show you another tip that you didn't get to see last week. If you go into a page card and you're editing that page content, that takes you back now to our page setup tab for this particular page. Now there's no content on this, but over here on the right hand side, it shows you the address of this page and a little QR code here. You can also link directly to that page.
Oh yeah.
Just by clicking that and see the link and the QR code.
And this really, I think this puts the nail in the coffin for so many churches, Byron, that had been holding onto their old website because of certain features and functionalities. With this new core update that we launched last week, this has made it this is going to replace the websites of thousands of churches in the coming year.
Right, and so go ahead, get your site set up the way you want it to look, wait for us to roll our use your domain feature out in the next couple of weeks. When we do that, you're going to be able to use your domain name as your site. It'll bring up your Church Connect site. The thing that you want to know though is if you already have a domain, don't make any changes to it yet.
Yeah.
Don't try to do anything. And if you don't have a domain, don't go out and buy one. Don't go register a new domain. Just wait for us to make the announcement because we are going to have some very specific instructions we want you to follow when you do that. And if you go ahead and do it now, it might mess up what you're going to do later.
Yeah.
So don't buy it yet. Just wait for us to make the announcement. It's coming very soon.
Now, I want to engage more with everybody that's hanging out here. Now, obviously, if you're watching us in the future, you can't engage like this, but you can always create a sport ticket. But just out of curiosity, let me know in the chat, for all of you who are hosting your website in another provider, be it Wix or Squarespace or whatever it may be, how much are you paying every single month for that website that you're hosting? Are you paying $20 a month? Are you paying $50 a month? Are you paying $100 a month? Let me know in the chat. I'm just kind of curious because I want to see how much money we're going to be able to save churches because that's kind of something we're pretty passionate about. In fact, it's one of our core values to be intentionally affordable.
Absolutely.
So I'm just super curious just because all the conversations I've had lately, Byron, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of dollars a year for every single church I've talked to, which blows my mind. That some churches have been spending $100 a month just to host their site on like a Squarespace, or not Squarespace, WordPress template that they don't even have access to, like you were saying. And it's just some generic, oh gosh, yeah, Tiffany, $100 a month plus $350 a year. Bob, $40 a month. Eddie, $39 a month. Nancy, $39.95. Aaron, ours is around $100. Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty wild. This is significant. I'm talking, this is like you can support another missionary or two or three, or in the case of Gabe, $400 a year to host our sites. Yeah, $274 a year. At least $100 a month from Jill.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they're like, some of them really hurt my heart when I see the prices.
Yeah, and we want to help you. We want to make it as affordable and user-friendly as possible. We love the feedback that we've been getting this last week. So keep sending it in. We are reading it. I mean, it's hard to read it all because you guys are sending so much, but we love it. And so keep it coming, and we're here to serve you and do whatever we can to help your ministry.
All right. Well, now that was super fast, Byron, just showing off a little bit of building sites.
Can I do one more thing?
Yeah, I would love, we're going to do a whole lot more, but show me something else that's cool.
I'm just going to grab this color that was set for our nav bar, that hex value, and then I'm going to come down to my footer, and I'm going to make the footer the same color.
Boom.
Just like that. But there's something else I want to show you real quick before we go into our Q&A time. The new option to use a custom footer. Now, what was built in disappeared, so you can use the built-in footer, which is the default, or you can set up your own custom footer and do some crazy stuff if you want.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add a custom footer section here. It's going to automatically throw in a template that I can use. I can customize this with my mission statement. I can customize this with my church name. Notice here though, it shows social media links and it shows footer links. If you have set these up in your edit footer menu under social media or under links, which they have, then when you preview this page, it'll automatically inject those into the template that you've created. Oh, I did the same thing. I forgot to publish it.
Oh.
Published, and then let's go back and refresh the page. There they are. And so this allows you to have more control over what's showing up in your footer, just like you can in some of these other areas. It's great to add some other sections as you're going into. You can add these body sections and then pick a template to fill in this content. So you can come in with some of our built-in content, just use it the way it is, or customize it to whatever your needs are. You saw some of our sites that have a map on it.
Yeah.
You've seen, some of these others. You can do some.
And you and the development team keep adding.
Right. We're going to add more templates too. There's more footer templates that are coming. There's more general templates that are coming.
More cards. This is getting crazy.
It is. And so I can come in here and just in a few seconds, I can add a couple templates and a couple different sections and make, they're just.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's just so fast. I think that's the thing that I still can't get over.
And then one last review of this page. Now I have a little bit more content on the page. It's starting to really come together. I haven't even done anything with the hero section, but I want to leave time for Q&A, and we'll come back and do some of these after the live stream.
Yeah, there's so many things I think we're going to be able to hit on the Q&A today. Now I know some of you it's 1:42 Eastern Standard Time, so some of you are like, hey Wes, I got to go. I get it. Thank you so much for joining us. But for those of you who want to stay around, we're going to enter into a time of Q&A. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this because right now we have the chat wide open, but there are so many people here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to enable Q&A. So I'm going to ask my team, enable the Q&A, but still leave the chat wide open because that way it gives us a chance to just kind of see, other people can talk to other people and stuff. But we're actually going to open up our Q&A. And in our Q&A, you can submit your questions to us. If you see a question that someone else has already submitted and you're like, hey, that's a good question, I was thinking of asking that, well, you can actually vote that question, bump it up, and so that way we can take a look at it. And we want to just answer as many questions as we can. And I think this is so cool having you in here because you and the development team, y'all are the ones that have made all these things. And so if there's anybody who's going to be a good person to answer questions about the church website aspect of ChurchTrac, it's you guys.
All right. So I didn't want to leave this one without some sort of hero section. And so I threw this in here real quick while you were talking.
Oh.
And it's just a few seconds in, but
that looks sweet.
But like literally in the amount of time you were talking, we created a whole new section and add it to your page to make it look even better.
Yeah, that's nuts. I do want to, because this is a question someone asked a little earlier, and I told them we'd address it. I've actually had a lot of churches ask this question. This is about video backgrounds.
Right.
And we actually talked a lot about this before launching Church Connect, because there's this trend that a lot of churches wanted to have a video background that showed off different aspects going on. But what's so wild is that trend, it's actually dying. Did you know that? It's a dying trend. And there's a reason why. Number one, videos require a lot of memory. A lot of people, when they're accessing your church website, how are they doing it?
A lot of bandwidth.
It's a lot of bandwidth that you're having to pull. And so they're doing it on a phone. And so that can cause your website to go slow. And that right there affects your SEO very terribly. Not to mention all the other updates that Google has made with their core updates of just how your website gets seen and like how prevalent it is in Google Maps and everything. And so most churches that started doing those videos years ago have actually since moved on. I actually went to the websites of 10 different churches yesterday that I knew had videos in place just a few years prior. None of them have videos anymore. And so there's a reason for that. It's actually intentional of why we didn't put that feature in there. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out because that's just something I think a lot of people don't realize. They think it looks so cool and stuff, but they don't realize how that actually affects a website in the grand scheme of things.
It's more important for your site to load quickly than to have a video background that's going to interfere with your message anyway.
Yeah. Another question I want to address before we dive into the other ones, and that was, I forget who put that in the chat, but they're asking about what are the 4 most important links that you recommend putting on the top of your website. And you tell me if you think otherwise, but I would say it really comes down to your church. What are the 4 most important?
For sure.
Yeah, so if your church is really more so focused on small groups and developing that, well, that's definitely going to be one of your links. So it really just comes down to needs of your church. But I'd recommend reaching out to our support team to get some insight from us too, and we can help you out with that.
Start with the question too, who is your site for? Is your site for your people, or is it for potential people who might be coming to your church? Because that can help to dictate what content is the most important on your page. If it's going to be that the guest, the person who has yet to come through the door of your church, that's the target audience, then you're going to want to say some connect with us or about our church. Whereas if you're really just focused on, hey, these are our church members, this is our member site, we want it for online giving or just for announcements and relaying information, then that's a whole different approach and a different set of importance when it comes to cards and links and things that you add to your site.
That's a very good point. All right, a lot of questions. We're going to start answering these questions here. And I see one from Kathleen, and I'll ask my team as I answer these questions if y'all could go ahead and just archive them out for me so that way, and I'll go by, not by newest, we're going to go to most popular. All right, so the first one, this one's from Zach. Is the domain name integration free? That's a good question.
So we are going to have to charge a little bit for that to make that work, because there are some costs involved on our end to make that work. But in ChurchTrac fashion, we are keeping it dirt cheap, as low as we can possibly price it, so that churches of any size can afford it. So if you're paying right now $20 a month, it's going to be a lot less than that. If you're paying $50 a month, it's going to be a lot less than that. So I mean, it's not going to be nearly as expensive as what some other services are charging to have that domain name in place for you. And we're going to do it as low as we can possibly do it.
So I have to, he's probably going to hate me for doing this, but I'm going to do this anyways.
Yeah,
this
probably
gives you a little of more insight into the owner himself. A lot of times when we're trying to come out with things and figure out pricing for them, because we want to be sustainable as a company and also, charge accordingly to where we're not, overcharging churches like they were paying hundreds of dollars a month for a year for their website. I'll go to Byron and be like, hey, this much I think is good. And then Byron will say, let's do half that. Most of the time, and I'm just like, but it just goes to show, that's the heart we have here at ChurchTrac, and that heart is ultimately driven by the core values that you've started from the beginning. So,
right.
All right, Zach, is the domain, oh, no, I already answered that. Domain name integration free? It's not. Joel, will ChurchTrac have email hosting in the future? That would hold us back from switching our website over.
So we're not actually going to manage your email for you, but we're going to offer you a solution that'll still work with your domain name. So I think that's what you're asking, is you want to be able to have email like pastor@mychurch.org. And there is a solution that we can do without us hosting it. So we're going to have some more details on that in the coming weeks, but that will be an option that you can do. It won't be directly through us.
Yeah, and we're going to have a lot of stuff laid out in the user guide too that's going to really give our recommendations of different things just beyond email. All right, Glenda, you have a really good question here. When making a logo in Canva for the header, so just show off the header again real quick, Byron.
So you're talking about the nav bar or the header?
I assume she's talking about the nav bar just because she's talking about a logo.
So a logo that would go up here.
So when making that logo, what size should it be? We have a maximum of 256 in the height, right?
No, so I mean that section is only about, let's say, 100 pixels tall.
Okay.
But you can create something that's 400, 500 wide by 200 tall, and it'll scale down to fit in that area and still look sharp, and that's fine. You just don't want a really large image there. It will slow down your page load time too.
Yes.
We're going to resize it anyway down to what we think is appropriate for that section when you upload it. So just something that's in the neighborhood. You just want to make sure it's more wide than it is tall. As you can see in this example, it's wider than it is tall. A tall one is not going to look as clear, and you're not going to be able to read any text on it. We've seen some logos in the past week where it's a more square shape and it's just got some tiny text on it, and you can't even see it if you zoom in.
Yeah, and I've actually encountered this with some churches where they don't want to get away from their logo, especially certain churches and certain denominations where the denominational logo is the logo that church uses. But that logo doesn't really transpose over well in church websites, unfortunately. Not just our builder, but any builder.
Right.
And so in those situations, it's like, well, maybe in the way that we have Lighthouse Church here, just having the text of it instead. So there are certain situations where you got to examine your logo and say, is our logo even something that works well?
Or like
Park Lane. Yeah.
Like we did with Park Lane, where it's just showing the text, and that's just a simple Canva creation.
Curtis asks, are you becoming the domain registrar, or do we keep our registrar and just point our domains to your hosts?
Right. Just wait for our announcement on that. We're actually not going to be the registrar, but we're going to tell you exactly how to point it to us so that it works with SSL certificates, so that it works with any browser, any device, and all of those details are coming, and we're going to make it as simple as we can for you.
And for those of you who are like, Byron, you lost me at SSL, is that a government service? We will have a service too where we'll actually take care of a lot of this stuff for you. That'll be an additional service, but that'll be something for those of you who are like, I don't even want to touch this stuff. Like, please just set it all up, point the things to where they need to point, make the satellites work the way they need to, so that way I can have a beautiful church website that my people can find. So we'll do that. So.
Yep.
All right. Michael Michelle, I can't read it because I'm realizing I need glasses, but background picture only available in hero section, ?
So you have access to all of the, I think we're talking about Igniter images.
No, so they're talking about you can only put an image in the hero section as it currently stands right now.
The background can be applied to heroes either on your main page or on any of your secondary pages. You can add a hero section to the top of your secondary pages for like your page cards or the top of your form cards, and you can put a background image on that. But the other sections, currently you cannot. It's going to inherit whatever that main background color that you've set for your site. It's going to be that background.
Cool. Alan, how come I can't see the words when I'm trying to add a template? I have to apply it first in order to see. That may be a support question.
Yeah, reach out to our support. I'm not sure what you're talking about. When you go in and you say use a template, it should be showing you words. I'm not sure unless you're talking about the new footer option with this and this, which that just injects it automatically when you're viewing the site.
Oh, and he may not be publishing what he edits. That could be the big thing. That probably is it.
Make sure publish is turned on for all of your sections, otherwise they won't show up when you go to your Connect page. And
I'm glad that's there, because I don't want to have just stuff that's like out there for everyone to see when I'm still trying to figure it out. But yeah, sometimes you can forget. Oh yeah, I gotta hit publish. All right, another question here. This is actually similar to like the logos, but are there any guidelines for sizes if you want to edit using Canva? Example, best size for logo. Like Byron said a little earlier, you want it to be more of like a rectangle, and I mean a rectangle that's going widthways. Landscape, yes, not portrait. And as far as like your Connect cards, I always say this. I strive for a website that has a lot of symmetry because I think symmetry looks good. And I don't want to get too deep in it, but ultimately, if you're going to pick with a certain type, stick with that. So if you're going to do square Connect cards in your site, do square. If you want to do ones that are like 16 by 9 size, do all of them that size. And then the other thing to keep in mind too is, you're going to have 60% of your people go to your website in a mobile device. So as you make your images, just keep that in mind that a lot of those images, if you're putting text on them, like I did with RAVC, Random Action Verb Church. In fact, I think, do I have that on my phone? No, I don't. I can't. But
well, even just going and doing something like this, you can see it's going to stack, and the cards are going to look like that instead of the normal layout that you'd see on a larger screen.
Yeah, so when editing images, you definitely want to have big text because if most people are going to be going in a mobile device, if we're being honest, so they need to be able to read it.
And this is a good site example where all the cards are the same size. It just looks consistent. That's your design style. But again, if you have different card sizes, that's okay too.
Yeah. Now, I actually deviated a little bit. You were talking about only having like 3 colors. I have 5 colors featured in this site. But the thing is, 2 of those colors are very close variants of the other primary colors.
Right. It gives it more of a gradient effect.
Yeah, I think it looks super fresh. And if you want to learn more about how I did all that and everything, go ahead, reach out to our support team, and we can help you out with that. We're going to actually be posting, I haven't even talked to you about this yet, but we're going to be posting Canva templates that are based on the ones I did for Random Action Verb Church here that you're showing. Just because I felt like with the new Church Connect Core update, we needed new cards that looked awesome that are on templates in Canva that people can just take and run with. And so if you're already used to using Canva and you're like, Wes, do you have templates that I can use so that way I can have some really sick looking cards, and sick as in good, not bad, then just hold tight because we're going to update our Canva templates and our user guide and have some pretty sweet stuff for you. All right. Other questions. Carrie, how can I change the font or size when editing cards slash sections?
So when you're on a card, the best way to do it if you want a custom card is to create your card in Canva or use one of the Igniter Media pre-built cards.
Yeah.
That gives you a card that's custom, like you've designed all of these here. These came from Canva, and they look sharp. And in just a few minutes, you can throw together something that has, a lot of these same elements, and then just add it to your card as an image.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about sections, though, we can do all that right here in Church Connect.
Right. So you can go in, and as you're adding a section, read me her question again. Make sure I answer it correctly.
So how can I change the font and or size when editing cards slash sections? So here, Byron, you're just adding a section.
I'm going to add a section. So when you're in here on this type of section, you can do a couple of things. Number one, as you click on each of these individual elements, you can change it to whatever you want. And I'm going to do this just for our video guy, David, because he loves this font.
Oh, man. If you use this font at your church, you should probably repent.
So you can come in here and change the different aspects of each of the things that you're doing. That's not going to be a good choice. Let me just do that one. And so you can make changes to your fonts that you're using that way for your sections.
Yeah.
That's probably the best approach.
And now, if you want us here at ChurchTrac to laugh hysterically at your website, then go ahead and have a different section with a different font type for every single section, and you'll give us a good chuckle.
Right. I think the key is being consistent, using the same fonts across your entire site.
Yeah.
Don't mix and match and think it's going to still look good.
Now, what I think it's so important, since we're talking about fonts, and that that's a hot subject when it comes to designing and stuff. I don't know why, but it is. So I actually answered the question from someone last week. They asked about the fonts, like why are there only so many fonts for me to be able to use in this? Because they're used to something like Canva that has like 10,382 fonts to choose from.
Is that all?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you're on the web, you have access to certain web-friendly fonts, or these are fonts that are already pre-installed on most devices. And so we are just listing some that we think will look consistent across most devices. You have to do some extra trickery to expand that to other font types. Unless you're putting your font in an image on a card or on a section, then it's going to be consistent because the image is always going to load the same. But fonts don't always look the same from device to device.
It can be wildly different, and that's why your church may have a specific font that you use, and that's great. But the reality is, even on if you have a website right now that's not Church Connect, you're still switching from that font that you may want everyone to see. They're probably not even seeing it because it may not even be a web font. So that's the other weird thing that comes into play. But anywho, all right, Craig, what color picker was being near the start of? So Craig wants to know the coolers. We could put that.
He might have been talking about the one that I used too. So I'm on a Mac, so this isn't going to be available if you're on a Windows computer. But I use something called Color Slurp, and I think this is a paid app. It's only a few dollars, but it allows me to do some really neat things with colors. So this is not the only one out there. Whatever platform you're on, whether it's Windows or Mac, you're going to find some color picker tools. Some of them are even free that you can use that can help you with colors, in addition to some of the websites that are out there that do the same thing.
Canva definitely has a color picker in there. So I'd recommend trying Canva. You can actually just throw an image into Canva and then use the color picker to identify. Actually, you don't even have to do that. It just shows you all the colors. It's kind of insane.
Yeah.
So my team's telling me you can even put an image into coolers, that one we showed off earlier, and it'll create a palette based on that image, which is kind of insane. So there you go.
With that said, though, now we were playing with some of this before the live stream today, and having it recommend colors, and we didn't think that they always went together. So just because it tells you, hey, these are colors that might look good together, maybe get a second opinion, ask a few of your friends, say, hey, do these colors look good, before you settle on it and build out your whole site.
All right, so I have to say this. All right, come close. The worst thing you can do if you're someone who is not a professional designer is to build your entire church website and then just go launch and not have anybody else look at it before you launch it. So please, before you launch a website, or before you even get super deep into creating and everything, check in with a few people at your church and just be like, hey, how does this look and everything? Because you're not building your website for your design taste, you're building your website to get your message across. And so you want your message to be able to resonate with people, and that means using proper design elements and doing things that are going to look good. And so get some second, third, fourth, fifth opinions if you can. Yeah. All right, let's keep answering questions.
Okay.
I didn't know that you can hide cards and show them only to members. How do you do that?
So it's pretty easy. You're going to go to your card tab, and when you select any particular card, let's say this I only want to show, I go to show additional options. I can say only show when the member is logged in or when the member is not logged in. And so that allows it to site visitors who are just there that don't have a sign in yet, they're not going to be able to see that card. So maybe that's a members only announcement that you put behind your login page. Or maybe it's just something designed specifically for guests. You can show that card only to people who are not logged in.
Cool. All right, let's keep, now we're going to this is like our rapid fire round, Byron, because we've been doing this since 1, so we're at 1 hour and 3 minutes. Will you add other Bible versions? Possibly. Reach out to us and ask us, tell us what version it is you're wanting. Maybe we could do that. Other question from Daniel. All templates show up gray. Can't see what is inside the template. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah, reach out to our team. Let's see, there might be something very specific with your account. It could be your background color is the same color as the template text that's coming in, and so you just can't see it. It could be a number of things. So reach out to our team. We'll be happy to help you out.
All right, Daniel's saying, so are we good to cancel our website subscription and keep our domain?
Don't do that just yet. Just wait for our announcement. It will only be a few weeks, I promise, and we will give you all the instructions you need don't do anything until then.
Yeah, and between not only instructions we're going to give, but also the service we're going to offer that, for many of you who are like, Wes, CNAME and the SSL, like, I don't know what any of this means. Can you just do it? We're going to have a service for that. So
I don't think Wes knows what it means either. So.
I just hear you talking about it all the time, and I'm like, CNAME, that's cool. I actually figured it out with Pizza Redirect or whatever it was called a while back.
Yeah, you're going to be able to do it without that.
Yeah, I had to use a YouTube video to help me on that one. All right, next one from Charles. In the footer, is there a way to remove the word links?
So, if you are using our new custom footer option, you can do whatever you want there. And let me show you real quick. You can go in, click on our keyboard, and you can edit it here and remove that or change it to whatever you want. You could say really cool link, I spelled it wrong, really cool links or church links or whatever you want, or you take that word out entirely. You can also go into code view and have access to a little bit more of that.
Now, we haven't showed off the code view that much. This is so great for, I think, some churches who are like, hey, there's not a certain template that has this and this that I want because I want to have a button that, looks like this. And we actually give some options in the code view where you can get a little crazy if you feel like it.
You can, but again, it's avoid your warranty. Do not do this unless you know what you're doing. You need to know a little bit about what's going on in that code view before you go in and start messing with stuff, because you can really break some things, make your site look bad.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because then we'll have to come rescue you. And
this comes back to something I think I've personally, just in the past 2 weeks, Byron, I think I've looked at 500 church websites. And the one thing I keep coming across is people are trying so hard to do something so incredibly creative on their website that they're missing the point of their website. And the point of their website is to connect with either guests, prospective guests, or their members. And don't get so focused on getting crazy customizing. Not that you can't get crazy customizing and doing some really neat stuff in this platform, but focus more so on how you're going to connect with people and what is the most important content and call to actions you want to give your people and everything, because that's what really matters, especially just kind of bringing us back to the reality. More than 52% of the web traffic in the entire world is mobile. And when it comes to church websites, there are a few different stats out. I don't know if you've read, but the latest stat I've read said that over 60% of web traffic to your church website is mobile, which means all this stuff that you're thinking of, oh, it'd be neat if this does this and this does this, no one's going to care because they're on their phone and they've got a crying baby in one arm like I usually am, and I'm trying to give online in the other hand and stuff. So really think about the reality of the situation, that most people looking on a phone, most people, they're not their full attention may not even be on it as they look at it. So really make it easy to navigate and use. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm on my soapbox on that one, and that's real talk, But anyways, got a year-old kid, that's just part of life. All right. Curtis, I think we already asked, in the custom footer, there are placeholders there for default social media links, blah, blah, blah. Are there placeholders available for address and phone number?
So there's not right now, but we're going to come out with some more footer templates in the coming weeks, and so you'll have some other options. But you can also go in here and do some stuff now with just using our basic template. You can customize this however you want. You can, if you know how to do HTML, you can even go into that advanced code editor and do some things there.
Jana's saying, I find that when adding content, it seems pretty restrictive and can't edit too much. Am I missing something like adding additional pictures? I can only have it right or left, can't have two pictures of the same line.
So pick a template that best represents what you want your end product to look like and start with that, and then you can fill in content there. A lot of times, especially on our secondary pages, which are our page cards, when someone clicks that page card and it opens up one of our secondary pages, sometimes that's just a lot of information, like an About Us page or what we believe. And so you can go into that code editor, click the keyboard above that section, and dump that text in, manipulate it, format it however you want there. And the code editor is going to be the solution for some of those issues. But in general, pick a good template that represents what you want your end product to look like, and it'll make it a little bit easier to get there.
And if you have recommendations, reach out to our team, because obviously we're not just, y'all didn't create this and just say we're done and you're going to do nothing for the next year. We're constantly adding things, and so we're constantly adding templates. I think probably in the next few weeks there's going to be another handful of templates that y'all are going to add on there. And so keep giving us awesome feedback. Byron, show that feedback area real quick, just because I think it's so important. This is really like the secret sauce that helps us when we're building ChurchTrac, is by getting feedback from you all. When you click that feedback, this is not support. By the way, if you ever need support, click that help button on the top right. But when you click that feedback, that gives you the ability to let our team know, hey, it'd be cool if we could do this. And just give us some ideas, because if we get enough people asking for this stuff, we're going to consider it. We'll take a look at it and see if this is something we can add to the software.
Right.
All right, Jill, we have a logo. How do I get it edited to work better for ChurchTrac, please? So I bet Jill has a JPEG and not a PNG.
It might be a JPEG, and a lot of times a JPEG file has a background on it already. It might be a solid background, but when you upload that, you're just going to see the white background or whatever color the background of that image is, and it doesn't look as good. So converting that to something that's a transparent PNG is going to look better.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So remember we were talking at the beginning about I like having a nav bar that has a darker background color. Well, sometimes your logo is darker, and it would be better to have a lighter nav bar background and your darker logo sitting on top of that. And you can do that pretty easily. So if I had, let's assume that this was a darker logo, I could come in here and select a lighter color, potentially even a white, for my navbar background, and then make my text color dark. And that's going to invert this. Now the logo disappears here because it's light on light, but
yeah.
If I had a darker logo, this would also pop a little bit too. And so it just kind of depends on that. You're probably going to have to edit that logo if it's a JPEG file to make it a PNG file, which you can do in an image editor. I think you can do that in Canva as well. Make it to where it has a transparent background, and there's some great tools out there to do that.
And the other thing too, just to kind of piggyback on what you were talking about, a lot of times churches have logos that are just like a square. And so there's a situation where you may need to like alter your logo a little bit to make it work better on different formats, such as a church website. Because let's be honest, a lot of our churches, in fact, the church I used to be a part of, we had a logo that was pretty old. And at the time the logo was created, that was when church websites weren't a thing. And so like sometimes you have to update logos so that way they can transpose better to different technologies during the day. So
worst case, do something like we did here where it's just text, stick it on your section in a transparent PNG format, and it'll look good.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna see if we have any other questions I can tackle. Accidentally, I don't know how I left the thing, so I'm going back to the chat to get back in our Q&A, Byron, but I think we've kind of addressed a lot of them, and we'll see if there's any last-minute questions we can knock out. ChurchTrac only supports JPEG. How do we change it to transparent PNG and be able to upload a ChurchTrac? So PNG is supported for the logo section because it needs to be PNG. So hopefully I answered your question. How do I edit card section, not the content of the card section? How do I edit that? So that's a pretty loaded question. Reach out to our support team so we can understand more so what are you wanting to edit and everything. Gabe, can it all be done bilingual, Spanish/English? So Gabe, this is a really good question. What I've found, because you have so many things going on here, Gabe, you have the fact that you've got a lot of images that are usually in a website. And so images are not something that real-time translate yet. I have a feeling in the next 5 years, the web will be able to do that automatically.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. But what I would recommend in your situation is, and I've seen other bilingual churches do this, where they create cards where they have both languages on that card. That makes it hard because then you're like, okay, I can't put too much on this card. But at least you're able to get the message across to both people. And also keep in mind that people can choose a language when they log into Church Connect. So a lot of the regular, how would you describe that? Like the prompts in the application?
The Connect interface itself can switch between English and Spanish, but your card images, the static content that you're creating is probably going to be either English or Spanish, or do it like you said and put both on the same card.
Can you show how to correct the spelling on the Church of the Nazarene logo? So you can't correct spelling on a logo image itself.
Did we misspell it?
Yeah, and the word Nazarene, so what's funny, we actually purposely misspelled it because we wanted to see how many people would actually call attention to that. And I think I saw one person in the chat actually notice that, which kind of made me laugh. So yeah, you can't change that. But we can definitely edit it at any time to change it. All right. Are the sample websites available for viewing outside of this live? Yeah, in fact, Bob, because this is so new, we've actually taken the time to build out some websites, and we're going to be putting some of those together in like a whole, I think we're going to have a dedicated page ultimately where we're going to put this, where we'll have a page of like all our examples of websites in which people can look at like a modern website, a traditional website, a contemporary website, a website for a church that is maybe located in an urban area, a website for a church that may be in a rural area. So that way you can just see all these different flavors.
Like an inspiration page.
Yeah, it's almost like Pinterest for church websites, you know?
Right.
All right, Bob is asking, is there a QR for the old style cards? QR for the old style cards.
I think what you're saying, the answer is yes. So basically, the old style cards are still the new style cards. It's just the new ones have a little bit more capability, but you can still pull up a QR code even if you're looking at an old style card like this one here. So when I click on it and say show additional card options, the view URL and QR code is always going to be right there.
All right. Well, that's all the questions. We just took a lot of questions. And I think we were able to really show a lot what's going on in here and just how a church can start editing and building a church website. Byron, anything more you want to say? Anything that they need to know about in the coming weeks?
I think you're going to have questions on, hey, you said you were going to do something for us, and we have this stack here to go through. Like, if it takes us a few weeks to reach out to you, don't be surprised, because we have a lot of churches that we want to help and reach out to. But we'll give you some instructions. If you haven't heard from us in the next few weeks and you're still needing some help, reach out to our team, create a support ticket, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction and get as much help for you as we possibly can.
Well, this has been exciting, and we are not done doing live streams around this whole subject. And in fact, we're not done doing live streams around a lot of other things we have coming out soon, because there's still so much going on here. Like, it's kind of crazy how many things the development team keeps coming out with and features that keep being added to the software. So stay tuned, because more goodness is to come, and we will talk to y'all soon.